Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unscripted. It's me, Matt, your host, aka Cut Corners, and it's great to be back here. I'm still in Los Angeles. Thanks to everyone who tuned in last week when we spoke to Spell. But yeah, if you've never tuned into Unscripted before, this is a show about the power of music, where we interview people that, great music makers, people in the music industry, and DJs, and we talk about music. And hopefully we introduce you to people that you may not have heard of before, or get to dive deep in with people that you do know. But yeah, this week I've got a fellow Canadian with us. He's made some big tunes, and he's a really lovely guy. I'm really excited to have him on the show. He goes by the name Sleepy Tom. I actually realized I have it in here as Sleepytime, but that was a spelling error. Please welcome to the show, Sleepy Tom. What up, Sleepy Tom?
Hello.
How are you doing, man?
Let me know. Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
This is really cool. I love the bass and guitar you got in the background, man. Those are quite a flex
Yeah,
there.
just picking up childhood instruments again in the last few years. Having lots of time on my hands, so
Nice.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
right out the gate, though, I really wanted to get the origin story on the name Sleepy Tom because your name isn't Tom, right?
No,
Sorry
no.
to...
My middle name is Thomas, so that's where that came from. I mean, there's not really like insane story, but it's essentially I was just like in my SFU dorm room and not studying, and it's just like making songs on my little old white MacBook and on Reason, and I was like, I need a name. So it was like probably a combination of like just the entire vibe of Simon Fraser University, which is pretty sleepy, and so it kind of just started there. Just threw it. I wanted to use my middle name, so yeah.
That's dope, man. Simon Fraser University, from what I know, was actually used in the X-Files series as part of the... I
Yeah, I
don't know.
think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things shot there. There's some like Armageddon movie, or maybe it was like Alien or something. Um, yeah, like my uncle was like one of the sort of main architects for Simon Fraser, so he like approved all those like concrete sort of jungle designs. Like I don't know if you spent much time up there, but it's basically like it's just like a concrete sort of concourse in all these places. So I mean, yeah, it's sort of a family connection there.
That's really cool, man.
Cool.
What were you
Okay.
studying at Simon Fraser University, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, I went there for music, so I was basically doing like music composition, whatever, like the sort of university equivalent of that. There was like they had like a gamelan there, which is pretty rad. It's like a sort of like Javanese um, sort of metal bell drums, and they're like a different tonality. They're like a different like uh, scale. Like they're not like sort of like um, whatever the
Traditional
term is,
Western.
traditional.
Yeah.
But anyways, I did that, and that was cool. But like the sort of it just wasn't. I was like, oh, this is not what I want to do. So I only spent a year there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes, forgive me if I'm taking too much of too much credit here, but sometimes the intellectualization of music can rob you of the joy. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it was just such a crazy time, like 2000, that was like 2008, 2009. It was like, right, sort of like peak justice, peak sort of, like 8-track and Diplo coming up. And it was like, there was just, the music was just so satisfying to me, and the program I was in, I was like, this is not it.
Sometimes it feels like the education system takes a while to catch up to what's happening current, like in the current, especially with music, right? Like
Hmm.
I think about this a lot actually. Like I went to school for jazz improvisation, and I was like, oh, this was really cool because at least there was a way to like kind of join it to modern hip hop at the time. But even still, like all the things I liked were samples of jazz records, and it was
Yeah,
like,
and like you kind of like it's like you would love to be able to like have all your sort of um like me going to university, I'd like probably pick up a bunch of stuff now if I'd go there now, or I'd like it's just timing maybe, and like I don't know if I can ever like get the timing right on anything, but like it's just like having that sort of structured. It was like it wasn't the time for structure maybe.
yeah, that's fair enough. Especially
Yeah.
like yeah, Bloghouse. There was like so much. I think about that. Yeah, like you said, 2008. Even now, it's like the sound design, the technology has been changing so rapidly. It's almost like music and technology are kind of like just exploding at a very similar pace, and technologies informing the way we make music and vice versa, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, totally. Like the and you listen back to those like the mixes. It's like no I think even like there's lots of DJs who are like we didn't no one knew how to mix like we're just like cramming stuff and like distorting things and like I mean that's the sound of it.
Yeah.
But I mean the mix is like who cares? Like I mean I always have to remind myself that the mix is like all this technical jargon and stuff. It just really gets in the way most of the time.
Now you just mentioned Justice, and I'm going to confess to you that the first time I listened to the Cross album was 2 months ago, the whole way through. Do you have
But
anything like that though? Do you have any like records that you're like are bona fide classics, or that maybe
that
you
I
just
slept on.
missed? Yeah, you missed for whatever reason.
Um, I wonder. I mean, frankly, like I've been late to lots of stuff. Like the music I listened to in high school or like early teens was pretty embarrassing. So like I mean, I probably was like everyone was like listening to like cool rap and like cool like sort of indie rock, and then I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I like this stuff too. Like, um, but I don't know. Like, there's probably I can't really think of anything specific. But
Yeah, I mean, dude, I was listening to like Illmatic in like 1999, and it came out 5 years late. I've been late on. Similarly, I've been very late on records that have come out, been bona fide classics, and I discovered them like way too late.
I
But
feel like that was like early on when I started DJing, like having um like exclusive tracks was so hot. Like having something unreleased was so hot, and because there was like a level of like, oh, I got it first, like I played it first, like it's not rinsed yet, and like I feel like that doesn't exist anymore. I feel like, or I'm sure it exists. It's just like for me, I'm like I think with streaming having like everything changed it, like everything like just like you said, it's like, oh, like let me listen to the Cross album. Like I haven't listened to that. Like I can't believe I haven't listened to that. And then it's like it's new to somebody. It's new. Like there's always like something that you haven't listened to yet.
yeah, it's
So
like books. Like I remember also, much later, I was like, oh, I need to read all this classic literature. I didn't read 1984 and like
yeah,
Animal Farm, or like like I just totally didn't read those books or whatever. I was definitely not paying attention in school, but when you read them as an
uh-huh.
adult though, they're really it's like and listen to an album like and knowing like oh this is gonna be good. I'm ready for this. I'm like psyching myself up. Let's go. And sometimes it's like the Cross album was fantastic. Listen to that front to back. I went for a run and I was like, this is energizing. This is
Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
And like you said about the mixes though, some of the mixes weren't great, but then I had to like kind of frame it in my mind like, okay, this is they're discovering Ableton for the first time and they're just figuring out like sounds that really didn't like that kind of production just didn't exist until they did it. So it's like kind of crazy.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like I mean, I always had to just remind myself that like me like nerding out while I'm mixing, tweaking some little thing like that no one will ever hear the difference. Like I'll like send like 30 different versions to my manager or my friend that I'm working the songs with, and it's like I like tweak a bunch of little things, and then I like the comments back are always just like the most obvious things. They're like, like that the vocals out of tune, or like you need to do something better here. It's like
That's quite
like
ballsy.
well, it's just like I mean the sort of production like sort of musicianship is like I guess what I'm like getting at. It's like that's what sort of shines through on those like early 2000
Yeah,
or
totally.
late 2000 records.
Specifically with Justice, I was really impressed with their approach to rhythm, and like the way they used, yeah, they chopped up kind of their instruments a lot. Like
Hmm.
their actual drum programming is very straightforward. Like it's not complicated, but all of the music around it, the instruments and sounds around it are very, yeah. It's honestly, I really enjoyed listening to that album as like a adult. You know what I mean? Like I can only
Yeah.
imagine what it was like to listen to that and hear it in like a club when it first dropped.
Oh my God. Yeah. The
Yeah.
best.
Did you ever see them live? I feel like we're just like fanning out on Justice, but this is fun.
No. I don't think I've seen them live. I could be mistaken, but um yeah, I know. Uh, I might have. I can't remember. It's been too long. I might have seen them at like Hard Summer or something. Anyway.
Well, now, I feel like I just want to touch back on your name because I feel like there was something I really wanted to ask you about Sleepy Tom, that we didn't get to cover yet, and that was, how do you feel about the Celestial Seasonings Sleepytime beer, the tea?
So, Sleepy Time Tea,
Yeah, do you know about the how they
or
have the logo of the bear, the teddy bear drinking the
oh yeah,
tea?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Are you familiar
yep.
with this?
I'm aware. Yeah, I know. I grew up on Sleepy Time Tea. Um, my parents would push that on us. That was the earliest sort of narcotic that I ingested, probably.
I feel like I need to bring this up
Uh,
for some context, just so people know what we're talking about. 1 second. Hopefully this works. There we go.
oh
There's the Sleepy
yeah,
Time
look at that.
Bear. They even have mugs. You can get a bundle of tea. So, yeah, thanks to our sponsor, Sleepy Time Bear, we have Sleepy Time on on the chat right now.
Yeah, I've always there was like a brief moment in the pandemic where I was like, I am I need to branch more into the sleepy thing, and I was like, because there was like a moment where I was like having a lot of trouble sleeping. I'd like sort of stopped smoking weed for a bit, and like I just kept waking up at like 4 a.m. for like weeks, and I was like, why can't I like sleep more than like 4 hours? But anyway, I was like, yeah, this will be more of my like I'll figure out this sleep thing and I'll make that a part of my brand more.
Yeah,
Like
totally. We don't
because
want.
that's
What's the opposite of sleep? Well, awake, but we don't want. Yeah. There's a disease, right, where you can't sleep. What is it?
I mean insomnia or
Insomnia. We
what?
don't want insomnia, Tom. We want sleepy
Mm-mm.
Tom.
Yeah, like I don't want to be like I just want to be like a little bit sleepy so that I'm like overtired and sort of comical.
And have you discovered a tea that helps with that at all? We chatted briefly. You said you were sipping on a peppermint tea. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, to go back, I was like, okay, how do I figure out this sleep thing? So I like researched a little bit, and I mean, everyone was like pushing melatonin on me, and I was like, research is sort of mixed bag. Like, sort of, it's a slippery slope with melatonin. So I avoided that, and it was essentially just I just like smoked more weed again, and like I was like, okay, and my body sort of like going cold turkey apparently wasn't that great for it.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. And just for everyone, if anyone's watching or listening that's a bit concerned about consumption of marijuana, it is completely legal in Canada, where Sleepy Tom is broadcasting from. So no laws are being broken by doing that, which is great. But let's get back a little bit to, I know we were just talking about justice, and I noticed like your new track, well, one of your new tracks, sorry, Call My Name is really like a disco burner, and it features a good friend of mine, actually, Dawn Pemberton, who's a fabulous singer from our shared hometown of
Oh, you're
Vancouver.
friends with Dawn?
Yeah, she's sweet, hey?
Oh, she's the best.
Yeah, we actually played in a band many years ago. It was like a broken beat style band, and it was had three singers, and she was one of the three singers. And she's a complete, she's just such a talented person, and she
Yeah.
teaches, and yeah.
hmm
How did you guys meet up? How did you and Dawn link on that?
Yeah, so I wrote this entire EP with my friend Parker Bosley, and we've sort of written for a while together. Um, so I met, he was like, you should get Dawn to come and do like vocals on a bunch of these songs. So Dawn's on a bunch of the EP. Like she's like, I basically, you know, she'd come and do sessions and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, she like came over and just like, I mean, like we're just sort of like, ooh, try this, like in terms of like vocal takes and sort of like she'd leave being like, okay, I'm good. Like I don't need to sing anymore. And like she's yeah, just such a vibe in the studio. So
Yeah, she's a real pro. Like I just when I've worked with people like that, and I'm sure you could probably attest to that, it's just such a pleasure because they're just
yeah,
really organized. They know exactly what they're doing. It's almost
yeah.
like you just don't even have to explain anything. It's just like a shared language, right?
Yeah, like having that's something I'm trying to do more, is get session players. Get like, okay, like sure I can like write and play as much as like I need to, but to get like a real pro to like bring your idea to like a different level, it's like it's just so much better. It's just like the having like a really like Park is a great big bass player and like having someone like Don to come and sing vocals and it's like just way better than faking it.
Yeah, that actually that's interesting you mentioned that because I was going to ask that. I hear the bass is a prominent feature in a lot of your tracks
Mhm.
recently, but also even going all the way back to your early stuff. It's always been very much a very rhythmic and bass approach. I was going to ask that you're a bass player, but I guess is that something like you have a bass literally behind you? So are you a bass player?
I dabble, but like that's I'm not. Like I mean like going back I mean I grew up playing guitar, so
Okay.
that was my main thing. So I mean um it's a totally different instrument. Like I mean the you know everything's sort of similar, but like trying to get build up calluses on my fingers is like so painful and tedious. Like so, but yeah, going back, like I mean, like a lot of my like first 5 years of songs, I like didn't even use a keyboard. I I drew everything in. It was all kind of just by ear, and
Wow.
I didn't. I feel like it was like more like sample based and that sort of stuff too. So it was sort of me trying to learn sort of production on the computer, and then slowly but surely I've like brought instruments back.
Yeah, I definitely hear a lot of really rich instrumentation on the newer songs, and that's kind of what I was like. Yeah, I'm curious to know like the direction that you're taking now. There is a lot of like I hear disco elements, funk elements. Is that a fair assumption, or is that something that you're listening to a lot lately?
Totally, yeah. Like that was like I was like, right, how do I like? I was kind of lost for a minute trying to um, sort of continue doing the DJ thing, doing like club music, but I was really more listening to like pop music, pop like song structure. And that was the part that I was like couldn't really figure out how to bridge the gap. And then I was like, oh yeah, I can just do disco. Like that's like pretty obvious. So that's it. I don't know. it's so weird with like inspiration and trying to like manage like your past work, your past sort of catalog, and to like do things in the now that you're excited about. So that was more like, okay, if I like, I need to like continue my musicianship, like musician, like like trying to make myself play guitar and play instruments and like key the my synth like before was behind me. You can't see it, but it's like an OB6, and like it was behind me for so long, and I was like, no, I need to put that like right in front of me so that I actually play it and use it, because these things can just sit unused if you
Oh
can
yeah.
just like click and find something. So yeah, it's just like trying to sort of hammer these things out that are sort of melodies circling in my head that don't have a avenue to get out. So, so it's an ever changing process, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the thing that people don't talk a lot about in careers is, I mean, some people do it very well where they have like this identity and they just stick with it the whole time, but a lot of people don't really talk about kind of the evolution of being an artist, right? And often like
Hmm.
it for me it's really exciting to hear in like a lot of your new music and like the song structure, the instrumentation that you're approaching your music with when you're previously I knew you as very much in the EDM lane and with a
Hmm.
slightly more electronic sound, and it's actually really nice to hear like a maturity. I don't know if that's a fair way to describe it, but it's nice to see some kind of an evolution of your sound.
Yeah, and like everyone's like always pining for advice about career stuff, but like no one can really tell you your career path. Like everyone's is different. Everyone maybe starts in a similar place, but where it changes and where your sort of inspiration goes, it's like who knows. So I'm like sort of just reminding myself that most of the time, where I'm like, okay, I just need to work, like, and just that's basically it. Just keep putting songs out that I feel somewhat strong about, and yeah, it's like it's more like I'm just dying to like be a better sort of musician. Like where I see lots of producers, and I'm like, I would kill for like your talent and that and your like level of like lots of people who grew up playing piano, and I'm like that's probably the best skill to have
Yeah.
in terms of being able to put chords into your songs like MIDI and having it actually like make sense into programming and
You mean like harmony, like keyboard
yeah,
harmony? Yeah, I agree. It's the
yeah,
hardest bit, right? It's really the hardest.
yeah, yeah, and like there's lots of people who grew up playing piano, but I mean I don't know, it's just it's like sometimes it's cool to have that sort of like approach where you're not sort of being traditional, and so
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes I don't know about you, but I try and like I don't want to get too much in my head about theory and harmony and like, oh, this chord has to go with this chord, and sometimes it's just like let go of
yeah.
that and just I don't know, use a one shot and just pitch it. You know what I mean,
Uh-huh.
and see what happens. You know?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, and it goes back to the same like mixing thing where it's like all these rules are really just they can get in the way, but they're sort of just there as guidelines. But
There there is definitely a certain emotional quality though that harmony brings out that like I struggle with any other combination. Like if you get the right harmony, it just feels like the
uh-huh.
feelings really swell up, and I don't know, nothing else does that. Maybe the voice.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's sort of what I've been trying to go after with um my at least my last two EPs is trying to get the my vocal production a lot better. And it's there's like so much to that. There's just so much to making music that like I don't know. I don't know if people value it or not, or they just don't like understand it. But there's so much that goes into like a hit record that I'm like that like whether or not like the people are like completely um, responsible for. Sometimes it's just like a great song, a great idea that just like spews out of you, and you're like, I have no idea how that happened. But sometimes it's just like a ton of people working on something forever, and like hearing sort of Mark Ronson talk about the Uptown Funk sessions, where he was like vomiting because they were like working on it for like days on end, like no sleep, and then like like Bruno Mars had some like he like came in late and like had some idea, like the do 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 do, and like that was the hook that like broke that song for them. But at the time, he was like, "That's like a dumb idea." Like, but then he slept on it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's sick." Like, there's just there's just so much to this stuff where it's like it's both like heaps of like you know BS selling like air to people, like, but then it's like a lot of technical stuff that you just learn along the way, I guess.
I think that's a really good point, though, and I'm glad you bring it up because I think, like you said, you're focusing on vocal production. There's so many like little things that you can become an expert at, and I think if we look traditionally at music made by bands or, even most pop records like, Mark Ronson or Beyonce, and you see like there's so many like credits in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people sometimes, get some pretty hot takes on Twitter about like, oh, well, Beyonce didn't write that song. It's like, yeah, but she sang it and she got all these people together, and it's like that's still a talent, I think it's kind of coming from this place where they've never tried to do this.
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring that up because there's like, I mean, it's such a hot TikTok thing to do to like break down the songs and the samples, and then people commenting are like, "Wow, Beyonce's in shambles," like, like as if like she like, oh, thank God for those samples, otherwise Beyonce would just be really in the shits.
Yeah, I
Like,
know, right? Yeah, I mean, even
sorry, I'm overtired. I'm losing it here.
No, this is great, man. This is exactly the kind of chat we're here for. We got a couple people in the chat. I want to shout out Hot Dog 69 Whitman. I think that's correct, and Queggy and Major Nazer. Thank you guys for tuning in. But yeah, like even the Drake thing, right? I think there was this massive issue back maybe 2016 or something where he got criticized for having a co-writer write some of the raps on his song, and everyone was like, he's got a ghostwriter, and it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
like Beyonce doesn't write all her own music. Aaliyah is one of the greatest, most celebrated artists of all time. She didn't write her songs, and there's nothing wrong with that, even if they were not writing songs, but there are still like, in fact, I watched this Aaliyah documentary the other day. It was great, and it has her like talking about how she chose Missy Elliott and Timbaland to write these songs for her because she wanted them and their sound to work with her and create this thing together. And it's like, okay, man, like she had a vision. Like that's still like that takes like guts, and she had to fight for it with the record label because the record label didn't want her working with those producers and songwriters. They didn't think they were hot. And it's like, yo, like you still have to find those people. You still have to have an ear for what you want to do and a vision. And sometimes I feel like the vision is actually the hardest part, right? Having an idea and then executing it the whole way.
Totally. Because you have to have the confidence that you're like that you believe in your vision, and which is like, for me, that's the hardest thing. It's like, right, like I've done this like long enough that I like, okay, I want to do this thing that I want to do, and it's not dumb, and it's like, and when you don't have like a ton of momentum, because you're not going to have momentum like all the time in your career.
It's impossible.
It's just not. It's impossible. So like, but yeah, like it's crazy when sort of talking about like how artists get shamed for like only doing one thing, because really, or like having other people help with songs, like these things take time, and these things like these songs are like I mean, and nowadays it's like there's so much more than just being like the actual, like the music as the product is the artist. And like, I mean, I'm pretty like like at my end with like all this stuff. Like I don't even, because like when you think about being an artist as a kid, or like I want to make music, like you don't really know what comes with that.
No.
You don't know that the persona is like half of it. So like I mean, when you have like that amount of responsibility as someone like Beyonce, it's like she's not gonna be like she's not gonna be like choosing the snare drum. Like she's not gonna be choosing like each sample. That's crazy.
Yeah. And why would she, anyways? But I do really like that. I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because yeah, when you get into music because you love it and you want to do it, but you're often not thinking about what, yeah, like you said, you haven't developed a persona or this like stage identity,
Mhm.
unless maybe you're a singer. But as a producer, like I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that like a lot of producers, myself included, can be kind of reclusive and kind of not antisocial necessarily, but just not really like wanting to be the one on the stage, doing all the stuff. Even as a DJ, you just want to be making the music. And I mean, you've even seen it with the Beatles. They were like tired of touring; they just wanted to make studio records. Totally get that. Like as a musician, I really relate to that. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, how have you navigated that, or how do you kind of work through those expectations?
Well, yeah, like now I'm pretty certain that I'm like, okay, I want to just like focus on this mostly. Like people attach me to being a DJ, but like really, it's like it's only a part, and it's really more like I make music, and so it's like I'm sort of just dying to collaborate with more people and on their music and sort of produce pop records and just sort of just keep doing the thing that I do most days, which is just come in here and in my second bedroom, and which is my studio, and just like fool around and sort of get ideas out. So yeah, like the the persona thing is so tough for me. Like I think you're right. It's like most sort of producer types are sort of behind the scenes kind of people. So it's just not really a period of time where it's like conducive to be like behind the scenes all the time. Everybody has to be upfront like all the time and sort of sharing everything. And it's like, well, like most of the time, like when I'm mixing, it's like or finishing a song, it's like really like boring. Like the last couple, like I'm just like I was sick the last like I got COVID like beginning of October for the first time,
Oh,
and it really rocked me. Like I've like avoided it for like 2.5 years, and then I was like, oh crap.
oh wow.
So so I've just been like behind on a deadline for this song, and so now I'm like, okay, I really need to finish it. Like I need to move on. And like the times where I'm really working, it's like I don't have time to like pretend like I'm like a cool guy. Like I don't have the time to show that off. Like I'm spending like 12 hours and I'm like editing everything. Like anyways, it's
I
it's
understand.
exhausting.
I totally understand. It's very hard to figure out how to make content as well as make great music, right? Like,
Yeah.
because they are almost specialized things upon themselves. Like being really good at making content is like one skill. Making really good music is like another skill, and like trying to combine them it's very challenging. And
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. And like you
Yeah.
said, when I'm making when I'm making music, it's pretty embarrassing. Like I'm just like, like looking at a laptop,
Yeah.
scrolling around. It's not a
Same with me.
yeah.
Same with me. Like I'm fine with being cringe. Like it's just like I just don't have the time to even be cringe. Like and pretend that I'm like I'm just like like sure I could film my screen. Maybe every like when like the label or manager tells you like you just have to like share more. It's like yeah, here's my screen. Like
What,
I mean that's why this be real thing is kind of good.
what's that? Oh,
Have you haven't heard Be Real?
this is a
The
new song of yours, actually, right? Yeah.
Oh, Be Real is the social app where they
Oh,
like yeah,
no, I
you've got
haven't.
to like you only have like a couple minutes to post, and then like it's like everyone posts at the same time.
I
So
thought you were
it's,
talking about Be Real, maybe from Cypress Hill. I don't know
oh.
Be Real, the app. Um,
Anyways, and then I downloaded it, and then it was like you have to turn on notifications. I was like, nope,
no,
delete.
yeah. Yeah, notifications are the worst for me, actually. I have all the notifications off. Uh, they are
Yeah, yeah,
easily the
over
worst.
them.
Yeah. Um, Sleep Time Be Real original mix. Yeah, that's right. My bad. Um, but just going back to the disco stuff. Do you consider yourself a disco fan? Like, if you could name,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, is there any like specific artists or like, I mean, from the most well known to the least well known? Like, is there anyone in particular that you always kind of come back to as influence?
I mean, like my mom played Earth, Wind, and Fire, like when I was growing up. I mean, I she had like great mom taste, whatever that means. So it's kind of like all over the place. But she would play like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then I mean, yeah, like a Shaka Khan here and there, and um, just the classics. But yeah, I mean, even, like she played Talking Heads too, and so that's not disco, but like
Yep.
the cool thing about Talking Heads is that they like I read his book, David Byrne's book, and they sort of talked about how they were sort of like started looping things, and it was I mean maybe it wasn't like revolutionary, but it was like that they figured out their process that way. And but yeah, like Talking Heads for sure, like just like anything groove based. I mean disco for me, like yeah, like but then like sort of to go back on like Justice and like that sort of French house, French touch stuff, obviously I'm very influenced by Daft Punk and Breakbot, um and then like I don't know, it doesn't have to be disco, but it's like stuff like Jungle and all over the place.
Well, have you heard the Breakbot Dance on Glass mix series?
Maybe, yeah.
That those have to be my probably my favorite mixes of all time. The way he makes these mixes, they're
Okay,
they're
I'll
insane.
check them out.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. Actually I'll put a link in the Discord for anybody who's watching. But um, yeah, Breakbot, incredible producer, but also like this
Hmm.
incredible DJ. How he puts all these rare groove and disco and R&B records together with his music. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's so good. The way he uses like the key mixing and then looping to go from one thing to, I highly recommend it. It totally changed my like idea of what a mixtape could be. He totally revolutionized like mixes for me. It was really very
Oh,
important. I think you'll love it.
wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
But yeah, Nile Rodgers and Chic must be
Oh
yeah,
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
yeah. It was
yeah. I
cool.
mean, I tried to like the Nile Rodgers guitar thing. It just blows my mind all the time. Where it's like, oh, he's just doing this, but it's like the hardest thing to like get right. It's amazing.
Sorry, just 1 second. Hot Dog 69 Whitman is trying to post a link, so please DM me that link. Just mine. I'm here. Hot Dog, hit me, and I'll put that on the link for you. Thank you for. Sorry, but we just have links not on right now. Yeah, Nile Rodgers' guitar tone insane, and then similarly, you were talking about Talking Heads, and obviously Tina Weymouth, Chris France, I think. Yeah, those guys did the Tom Tom Club too, which is also this like extremely important funk post disco group too, right? Like, and they had Bernie Worrell from on the
Yeah.
keyboards. It's like, man, yeah, Talking Heads are. I love the Talking Heads, man. They're so cool. They worked
Hmm.
with what? Who was Brian Eno working with them, right? Early on.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah, I think there's some David Byrne, Brian Eno song that's my one of my favorites. But um yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge like if you throw out a bunch of names, I'd be like, yeah, I probably have heard it, but I don't know. Like Parker comes by, he's like, oh yeah, let's just put on that. I'm like, oh, he's like, what? You haven't heard this? So it's yeah, like I can only wrap my head around so much, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've only got so much time, and you've got to be spending that time making music. And I was gonna actually ask your daily. You kind of alluded to your daily operation. You go in there. I'm really curious to know, like, do you start with harmony, or is like, what's your kind of like daily operation for starting an idea?
Yeah, I mean, starting an idea, I mean, it's like generally I'm like just trying to find some demo that I usually I have got like little demos that I work on for like 30 minutes or something that I like sort of put them in a folder, and then I'll maybe like look through those and see if there's an idea there. Um, but yeah, it usually just starts with a little demo, and it's like sort of, just working on trying to get like a bass line that is like somewhat fun, and drums that are fun, and then yeah, usually, I mean, for this record it's been like Parker and I like sort of, oh, it was like last fall we were sort of in the studio a lot and just um sort of working these songs out and getting the vocals, and he's sort of like, that's his sort of lane. I'm like beat guy, and he's he's the vocal sort of, um comes up with lyrics and that sort of thing. So yeah.
That's awesome. Now I do want to talk about like different techniques for sampling, and one of the things that I do a lot of is I actually often use like an a cappella to like help me structure a song, and I also
Yeah, yeah.
that was like always helps me just like kind of flesh out. Do you do that too?
I've actually thought about doing it lately, and then I was like, because like, I mean, that was sort of like growing up doing like remixes. That was essentially, that's what it is, like just making a new song around an a cappella. So yeah, it's a good idea for sure.
Yeah, it just really helps me kind of like I'm not a songwriter like for vocals at all. Like I don't do that. So it's nice to have someone like just have a template, just put it on there, and then like, oh, okay, we'll work around that. Um,
Yeah.
but using vocals in tracks, and also speaking of remixes, actually, the big track a lot of people know you for, "Be Right There" with Diplo. It's the reinterpolation of. Can I say that? Am I allowed to talk about that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Um, the
Yeah,
Don't Walk
the
Away.
writers have a hefty share of that song.
Shoot, I bet. Um, but I remember hearing that for the first time on your SoundCloud, and you also had a Move That Dope remix on SoundCloud. It was very casual, and I remember I was like, I think you had them up for free download, so I downloaded them, and I was like, these are bangers. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story with like that. It was like essentially summer of 2014. I was just making some bootlegs because I was like sort of playing club sets quite a bit, or was starting to play more. And so yeah, I like a handful that I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. And then the Jade one was like, I'd sort of been working on this sort of instrumental demo for a while. So I was like, let me find a sample for it. Maybe I'll just make this a bootleg or something. But yeah, I scoured acapellas for you.co.uk.
Pro tip
And
right there.
and I mean, it's sample diving, again. It's like talking about like specific skills, and like that's like a whole thing. It's like, oh, let's like pull this sample, and like I'm like, oh, if it's been used before, I'm like, it's gone. I'm out. Like, I think I'm a little more like, I'd be more lenient now, like having like been in the music industry for long enough. I'm like, everybody uses the same samples. Like, might as well just do it.
Do it
But
your own way, right?
yeah, but yeah, like I found that and then throw it on there, pitched it up, and I was like, ooh, this is good. Um, so yeah, that demo, the bootleg demo, we tried to get it cleared. We like, I got my manager to like try to connect with the original sort of licensing and tried to license it, but couldn't make it happen. So I was like, okay, I'll just put these out. So there's the I did like a club edit of the I Want Your Soul Armand Van Helden track. So there was that one, and then there was like this like fresh take on the Future song, and then put those all up, and then like it was like 2 days later, Spinnin hit me up, Spinnin Records, and they're like, we want to release that I Want Your Soul bootleg. I was like, okay. So I took that down. And then like it was like I sent that out like on a Wednesday or something, and then Diplo was playing at in Vancouver at the Matty's Block Party. Um, so I did a remix for him in 2013, and like kind of kept in touch with him, sending him music and stuff I was working on. And so I sent him that bootleg pack, and I was upstairs at the Commodore Ballroom, and I was like, Diplo was playing, and I was like, huh, oh my god, he's playing the bootleg I sent him like 2 days ago. So it's too bad because I've lost the video. Like I had a video, like a shitty like sort of Instagram video. There was probably some goofy ass filter on it, but like yeah, there was a video of him playing that original bootleg. And then it was like probably a couple months later when like Paul Devereaux and him hit me up, and they're like, we should like make this a thing because it's like quite good. It's been working in the sets. So we collaborated on that, and he got Priscilla Renee, who's also Mooney Long. That's another little tidbit of this song, is that Mooney Long is singing on Be Right There.
You're gonna have to excuse me. I don't know Moody Long. Can you tell me?
Mooney, I mean, she's kind of blown up now.
Okay.
She's a sort of R&B singer.
Okay.
I think her real name's Priscilla Renee. Anyway, yeah, so she like killed that vocal, and I mean, it was like, oh, we just need someone to sing it. So it wasn't really a feature. It was like, we just need someone to like re-sing this vocal. So she didn't get a feature, but like, I think she might be featured on it now. But anyway, that came to be that way. It was a long process though. It was like trying to get the sample cleared, and then the writers were gonna sort of take everything, and then we sort of rejigged it. So it was like we cut out one of the verses, and so it was kind of a cool like experience from the sort of music licensing side, and yeah, so it became a hit, which is cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to shout out Kid Spin. He's in the chat actually, and he works at our friend's Beat Source. He does a lot of cool edits himself, and he plays it in his serious mixes often, which is super cool. But cool. Yeah, I also just did a quick Wikipedia of Mooney Long, and yeah, her name is Priscilla Renee Hairston. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, it's pronounced Money Long. That's cool. I like that.
Money Long. Yeah. There you go.
Super dope. Yeah. But you know what's cool? Like I really love hearing that that story, mainly because yeah, it was obviously something that you just kind of like put out there, and it took off unexpectedly. That must have felt amazing, hearing it being played for the first time at the Commodore. That must have been a hell of a moment.
Yeah, that song is like obviously changed my life, which is cool to say. But yeah, it's been like having it sort of, I don't know, it's crazy to think about what could have happened had I sort of not sort of collaborated with Diplo on it, but who knows. Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that people still play it today, like that's sort of the thing about DJ music, club music, EDM, and that sort of thing. Everything is fads and trends, and if somebody's like playing the same song for like 2 or 3 years, let alone like 7. um it's pretty cool. Like a lot of songs just die out pretty quickly
Yeah.
when the hot trend is over. So yeah.
Well, that's actually something I wanted to talk about too, because one of the things I do love about is that you used this R&B vocal, um, and I love personally I love R&B vocals on electronic music. Like it's one of my
Hmm.
favorite things. One of the things, like a couple of examples that I'd like to kind of give, you know, is like Burial sampling Ray J, or like Jacques Green sampling Sierra, and
Hmm.
really kind of recontextualizing them, right? Taking them out of this kind of more pop, and then taking it sometimes into a very dark world or different
Yeah.
energy, right? Um, do you have any like favorite kind of examples of that, or like is that what you were trying to do when you did that song?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's not far off of the music that I'm making now. Like it's really like that's like what I'm dying for. Is just like a vocal that kills, and like all those R&B vocals, the singers are amazing,
Yeah.
and the melodies have been crafted, and like the sort of the nuance of the vocal is like is has been detailed to a way that like it's exciting, and then putting it in a different context is wicked too. But like I guess the difference being like when like a typical EDM top line is like is a little bit like boring and just like because they're like, oh, how do I sing to this beat? Whereas like that's sort of the excitement of throwing like pitching something up and throwing it onto like a, a sort of electronic house track. It's like it's a totally different context.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's cool though because like when you think about like I love jungle, I love UK garage, and like especially UK music really leans into the R&B electronic kind of hybrid,
Hmm.
if you will. Even like
Hmm.
I think dubstep has some R&B joints and stuff. Like it's so
Hmm.
cool how much, like you said, I guess the vocal is just so perfect, right? It's such a great example of what a vocal should be, and R&B songwriting is such that they have really great melodies, right?
Yeah, and maybe the UK thing, like having like house music be so entrenched there for so long,
True.
and like artists like Craig David, like making sort of upbeat sort of pop records that are like club ready. I mean, it's not far off what I'm trying to do, but it's like the American sort of R&B so much slower, maybe.
Yeah, I always like the double time. I always like to, if I get a chance, I'll take like a slower R&B song and then do the old double time.
Hmm.
It's a great trick. But yeah,
Pop trick.
yeah, shout out to Craig David, man. Craig David makes incredible music. Hey, still.
Uh, I know he's killing it.
Yeah. And then a new beat band. Shout out a new beat band in the chat. He had a question for you. I think it was in relation to what makes your music last. He says, "Why do you think it lasts?" Is that right? A new beat band. Let me know. Am I asking the question right? What makes the longevity of your song be right there last so long?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of probably not really anything that I did. It's like the song was already there. Like it was already a smash hit in like 1992. So it's like I can't like take credit for that at all. So it's more like maybe it's just what we're talking about, where it's like sort of a song that was already a great song in a different context. And I mean, like it's definitely a banger. It
Oh yeah.
it works. It's like um, and then but also another thing that is sort of DJ culture, which is like you just take the acapella. Now we have a great acapella, and that song it just gets like mashed up with something else, like Burns's Talamanca. That's like the hot thing now that Diplo's playing all the time. It's like um, with the Be Right There vocal on top, and it's like, oh, now that song has a new life because it's like a song. It's put under a beat that's like everybody's playing now, and I mean that's kind of that's the beauty of a great vocals, that you can like throw it over top of a bunch of different things. So I'll make edits and like, so the actual like track that I made, like maybe is like it's still great. It's still a great track, but it's like I probably wouldn't play it as it is in my sets exactly. I mean, depending on the set, maybe if
Yeah.
it's like I'm playing a big stage or something, then for sure. But like if I'm like, oh, I'm doing like a disco set, like I'm just like sort of working on a disco edit of it right now. I'm
Oh,
like,
fire! I
okay,
gotta hear
cool.
that.
You know, like that's, I mean, that's the point, is like you just have this vocal that you can put in all these great contexts.
Absolutely.
It
Hey,
just sort of keeps it alive.
I gotta give a quick shout out, Kidspin. Thank you for subscribing, and I think we got a raid as well. Welcome in everybody who's raiding. We're talking to Sleepytime right now. We're wide awake talking to Sleepy Tom. But yeah, that's so cool. Like you
Cool.
can, yeah, like you said, disco edit. Oh, shout out Decap. Decap. We all love Decap drums, don't we? Decap drums
Oh,
that knock.
big time.
Big up Decap. Thank you for the raid.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. This is the great thing about doing live streams, right? You get to have cool people like Decap come on in and we have a chat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, I love the samples. I've got a bunch of them in my splice.
right? Yeah, I think we all do.
Fire.
Decap drums make everyone's song sound very, very good right out the gate. So yeah, if you don't have them already, get the drums that knock, man.
Big time.
But yeah, we're sorry, we were talking about making a disco edit of Be Right There. I really gotta hear that. Please send when I can get that.
Yeah.
If you're willing to
Yeah, I
share.
mean, well, yeah, I'm just sort of like I've got to finish this EP, and then it's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna sort of think about doing some sort of club shows again, and trying to put a set together. And yeah, it's always gotta have a fresh version of Be Right There.
Now, when you do a set though, like when you're doing a DJ set, how do you like? I imagine when you're playing shows, people are coming and they want to hear specific songs of yours. Do you kind of construct your sets, or are you a lot of the time improvising?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't DJ'd a whole lot in the last few years, but
You're not alone.
the the yeah, like when I was sort of, I had a pretty like standard set, or I think I like to think of it like I'll have like sets, like, or set within a set, where it's like I have like a couple songs I need to get to, and then I know how to get to them. And so it's like maybe a set will comprise of like 10 mini sets or something, where it's like depending on the energy, it's like, oh, I'll play a few of these songs because I know they work well together, and then from there I'll sort of say, okay, maybe I'll go to this little bit, and then I'll, so like, because for a while I was like playing like Eurythmics
Sweet dreams,
Sweet Dreams out of
banger.
Be Right There every time because it just killed. And so yeah, and I just do, it's always like fun to make little edits every time, every few months, to keep the sort of song staples that you play, just keep them interesting. uh, yeah, I'd make that as, and then Diplo just, I'd send them to him, and then I'd see him playing them over for like 4 or 5 years.
That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, when you play your music to a crowd, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's really the best feeling you can ask for. Um, I mean, yeah, like I especially like it like in a small club, like having like being able to see like individual faces sort of like react to certain songs is really, it's because really what we're talking about is like connection and sharing good energy. And I mean, like playing like a big festival is cool in a way, but it's not the same sort of connection you get just playing like records in a club for people that are just having a great time. So I think that's partially where I'm like my music's not as like peak time aggro anymore. I'm like, I want to make music where I can like have like, you know, real connection with people in the club, see some like faces up close and have a good time that way. And I'm not like dying to go like do a festival circuit like for like, you know, 3 months, because I don't know, it's just exhausting.
That's really interesting, though, man. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I do think, you know, a lot of us and a lot of DJs probably that's their pinnacle of success, is playing a festival show, you know, to thousands of people. And it's really refreshing actually to hear you say, you know what, that's not really for me. And it's no shade. Obviously, everyone has different ambitions and different experiences. But yeah, I'd have to agree myself. I haven't really played many festivals like you, but often the club and environment that you get to play in can kind of determine the risks you can take as a DJ. And that's always been, for me, the most musically fulfilling, is if I'm playing a smaller club, I get a bit more carte blanche, or, you know, freedom to play the music that that really speaks to me. And I know that like ultimately that ratio changes. The more people there are, the more I have to kind of play something more general that everyone is going to understand. And
Yeah.
and that's almost a sacrifice or a compromise. Maybe not. Maybe I don't know the right word for that, but I always think of it as a compromise. Like if I'm playing to like, you know, 40,000 people, hypothetically speaking, like the chances of them all liking the same kind of music like me is very slim. But if I'm playing to a smaller room of maybe 100 people, and they're coming to see me, and I can probably only pull about 100 people max, you know what I mean? Then I really
Yeah.
have like the ability to take control of that environment, right?
Uh-huh. And this whole idea of like reading the crowd, I'm like, like if you've played in front of like 5,000 people before, there's no reading. Like there's like people are either like like enjoying your set because like they're there to see you and you're doing what you do, or they're like in between like festival stages and they're just passing by. But there's like somebody else, no one's on the main stage. Like that was like my experience. And like, I mean, versus being in the club, like you can actually read the room in the club. Like you can, like, there's actual like vibes to read. And like as a DJ, it's like that's kind of like you get to do your job in that sense, and that's where it's kind of fun. And yeah, I mean, it's like going back. It's like hopefully my music is maturing, and like, you know, I get to play like disco records, and I can play like older ones, and I can play new ones, and I can play like, you know, like so I can throw in some like, you know, Talking Heads and little like lots of like, you know, music. Like I, it's just more or less like I think music that I listen to has changed over time, and it's like now I'm like not as aggro.
Yeah. Can I ask though, what are you listening to right now? Like, what are some, if you could recommend, I don't know, like a song or an album or a couple artists for people to check out? Would you have anything that comes top to mind?
Um, there's a new song by this group called the Flints that I'm really vibing to. It's produced by I think it's produced by this producer in Toronto called Cause, and he's like a super good producer. He's worked with like Dua Lipa and a bunch of people. But that's one song that I'm really vibing to. That's sort of like I think they're fairly unknown. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm like loving the Beyonce record. I'm loving like um, what else am I listening to? I have to look at my phone.
That Beyonce record is
Uh,
incredible though. Like it's come up a couple
it's like
times.
undeniable. Oh, I mean, yeah, like listening to Like Dawn FM, the Weeknd's record, is like so sick to me. Like the first, like just the entire like aura of it. I'm like, I vibe with this so hard because it's like I was just talking about it, and it's like the like talking about death in like a somewhat like humorous way, and like not being overly dramatic, but like still having just like the Max Martin like smash hooks, smash hits, like and just the production on it is so rad. He worked with like he you know the Safdie brothers.
No,
Um,
I don't.
like they do like they did that movie Good Times. They did Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. But anyways,
Oh yes, yeah, yes, I
this
really enjoyed that
this
Uncut Gems.
yeah, I forget the name of the producer, but like he sort of did the music for a lot of the Safdie brothers music. So I think The Weeknd was in Good Times, the one with Robert Pattinson,
That's
which is
he
kind
was
of a
also in
crazy.
Uncut
That's a true.
Gems as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think he's buddy buddy with Safdie brothers. Anyways, like I think the producer's name like OP1 or something. I can't remember, but he produced like the first bunch of the songs, and I'm like, oh, it's so rad. Talking about like putting like an R&B vocal over like a burial beat or something, where it's like this like sort of weird context. That's where I feel like Dawn FM is. It's like this like super spacey like with like modular synths, and then it's like, but it's like great songwriting and like such a great vocal. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that really gets my juices going.
Yeah, yeah, well, you know what else is really great about that record, Dawn FM by The Weeknd, that I think is really unique is that they have a kind of a dedicated production team throughout the whole thing. So it's really like this producer artist collaboration, which as much as I don't want to, I don't please don't take this the wrong way, hip hop fans, but like a lot of hip hop is often about having a different producer for a lot of tracks, but something like this, where The Weeknd is working with like a producer combo kind of throughout the whole record. I don't know, there's other producers on there, but it's really like this
Yeah.
kind of small group. It feels like they've enabled this kind of perfect combination of realizing that vision that we were talking about earlier, where it's like very cohesive the whole way through. There's a theme. It's executed very well on a sonic level. On
Yeah.
all the elements are there, and it's like a movie. And like even like you said, there's the visual aspect of it. It's all there, and it's
Uh-huh.
such a fantastic experience, right?
Yeah, and it's so like, oh, like there's nothing really like that in the pop, like top 40 pop world, where like someone's making like weirdo like interludes between these songs and getting Jim Carrey to do
Yeah,
like a monologue, and then like an outro which is like heartbreaking. I'm like, this is like, yeah, the whole thing is straight up like a movie. And I mean, there's like even the Tyler the Creator song, which is rad.
yeah.
Like there's like little moments where it's like, oh, that's like typical Weekend, but like, I mean, like I guess it's just someone like him, like having like been in it and put out a bunch of records and like done like the generic thing. He's probably had this vision and was like, I want to do this. Because I mean, but there's not many like singers and top 40 people like him that are like, oh, pulling for like beats from like Gesaffelstein and like and Kavinsky, and
Yeah.
like it's like he's like one of one that way.
But it makes perfect sense, especially the Kavinsky thing. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because obviously Kavinsky Night Call is like this perfect pop song, but it's
Uh-huh.
also like dead set in the dead center in the of the Dawn FM like style. Like if Night Call was sung by The Weeknd and it was on Dawn FM and never came out before, it would make perfect sense. And
Totally.
it's like the other crazy thing about The Weeknd and that album specifically. I'm getting super juiced off this chat, by the way. It's so cool, like how he like I know everyone knows he's like a super Michael Jackson fan, and this is
Uh-huh.
like a like like Thriller, like this Dawn FM Thriller comparison. I don't know. I don't want to like I don't want to upset anyone about that, but you can really
Yeah,
tell that that whole kind of like vibe, he's taken that with him, and it feels
yeah,
so like natural for him, you know, like
uh-huh. Yeah. Like there's, I mean, I think he's like an undeniably amazing singer, but then when you like compare like his sort of peers, he just like is ballsy with production, and like like, I mean, I'm talking about people that are ballsy, like is not someone that I'm what we want to talk about right now, but it's like that's what made Kanye great. Is like it's just the ballsiness of like doing something where it's like I'm going to do this and this
yeah.
together,
Oh,
and
musically
that's the
speaking,
only,
absolutely.
yeah, musically speaking, yeah, not politically.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like the yeah, like the first time I heard that, I was like, oh my god, because I mean, I'm still dying for like the smash hits, like Take My Breath is still like I love it, and it's I mean, just for someone like me who's like making dance records, I listen to those drums and like, God, I just would love to make drums as good as those, like, but you know, it's just like, yeah, listening to that all the way through, just like hearing all the little nuance and in like the mixing, but like then you've got to go and you've got to look at the who was working on it, and it's like the best people. It's like Serban mixed it and Dave Kutch mastered it, and it's like, you know, it's Max Martin production, and it's like The Weekend, and it's like no wonder. So whenever I'm like hard on myself that my stuff doesn't sound nearly as good, I'm like, right, I'm only one man.
Yeah, and you don't have a whatever multi-million dollar budget to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are definitely using, like, it was cool actually. I watched the performance or whatever, and it's cool. Like Max Martin has like all this crazy synth stuff around him. You know, like he's got
Yeah.
obviously like, yeah, like your Oberheim. He's probably got like one of those Moog grandmothers or whatever. They're like all of the best analog synth gear all around him, all linked up, like synced up with drum machines. I'm like, whoa, this
Uh-huh.
is just on a complete music nerd fest. It's
Uh-huh.
so exciting because he's going so deep on that for the live
Yeah.
show. Really cool.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
yeah, I feel like we should probably move on from like fanboy in the weekend. But yeah, speaking of drums and production techniques, would you be able to share like a cheat code or something that you think really helps with just like getting something started or something finished or anything that you would recommend to somebody who's into production, that even a
I mean,
plugin like
I don't know, just like a Neve EQ. I mean,
yeah.
that's honestly just been my like revelation in the last like handful of months, is that I'm like, right, I shouldn't stress about I sometimes I'm always reaching for some like X Factor plugin that's like a do it all sort of thing. But then I think I'm just sort of like um just being a little more like, okay, drastic with my EQ, and because I think that's a thing where people get sort of caught up, like producers and mixers, when you're like looking for advice for places. People are like, oh, like, yeah, you just shouldn't like do this, you shouldn't turn the bass up that much, or you like shouldn't like like it's a lot more complicated to make a kick. But sometimes it's not,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to use your ears and be like, no, actually this does need some low end. Like that's what, like, a lot of times it's just like little fixes where I'm like, why isn't this exciting me? It's like, well, it's like, give it some low end and make it exciting, give it some high top end, make it some exciting. I mean, it's not always the fix, but it's just like, I'm I I guess I just sort of hesitate to give like specific like plugin advice, because I always find myself like sort of, that's what pops up to me on YouTube,
Yeah.
like this sort of recommended videos, and then I end up going down a rabbit hole and like, but I'm not really listening to the song. Like I'm not really listening to what the song really needs. So I guess it's like Yeah, just I use this like the UAD a Neve 1073, and that's just like that's one thing. I kind of hesitate to use graphic EQs
Oh, okay.
because I don't want to look. I just want to hear. I
Right.
don't want to be like, oh, that part needs to go down. It's like,
Ah,
well, maybe not. Like I like the Neve because it's super simple and it's just like most of the time I'm like, okay, take up like a high pass and then maybe it's a bit too honky or maybe like 700 needs to come down or maybe 700 needs to come up. Like it's just it's I don't really want like I have the Fab Filter Pro Q, which is like which is great for lots of stuff and I use it like all over the place. But I kind of stopped using it as my sort of go-to EQ because I was like, I don't want to look, I don't want to look, I want to just listen, if you know what I mean.
that's a really good. I like that. Just listen, don't look, and worry about like actual frequency numbers. Right? You just trust your
Yeah.
ear, and you may get a. It sounds like you get a better result. Now, is that Neve? Is that like a 3 band EQ or like a 4 band EQ?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
simple.
it's three band with a high pass. And yeah, I mean like there will be lots of times where I'm like, okay, I need to really be sort of surgical and
Mm.
like use the Pro Q where I'm like, is it like then I'll sweep around, especially for like for vocals when like maybe it wasn't recorded that great and you need to sort of get rid of some weird frequencies. But
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Vocals are a tricky one, and yeah, having people record them and then send them to you is always
mhm,
luck of the draw. And yeah, it's really
yeah.
really really interesting.
Mhm,
Yeah, that's really helpful, man. Thank you for sharing that. I just feel like
mhm,
sometimes everyone has like these things that they do that's a little bit different from other people, and it's always nice to hear that perspective, you know. And it's one
yeah.
of the things that I think a lot of people, including myself, like about your productions is the sound quality of it. Is you have a really good sound design, and it's especially even the the newer stuff. It's a different approach, but yeah, it sounds really full, really rich, and it's really exciting. So yeah,
Thank you.
I love hearing these sorts of things. Now, if you don't mind sharing, like what are you currently working on? What is your projects, or what can we look forward to?
Yeah, so right now I'm finishing my sort of last song for this EP. It features this singer called Nairi, and she's from Sydney, Australia, and she's sort of singing over this song Parker and I wrote. And yeah, it's sort of it's pretty similar to the last few I've put out, pretty like disco banger. And so yeah, I've got to keep working on it and keep sort of discovering new things about it. I've just sort of like before I hopped on here, I was just getting bouncing down plugins because my computer was gonna rocket off to Mars. Like the fans were going crazy. So yeah, doing that EP, and then yeah, I've got a handful of other songs in the works that I'm like sort of just everything's on hold until this other song is finished. But yeah, just trying to write more with people in the studio now that COVID is potentially a thing of the past.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I guess especially since you now got it and you've kind of recovered, so yeah, you've
Uh-huh.
got like a little bit of at least 3 months
Yeah.
grace period. They say.
Yeah, it's like 3 to 6 months. It's like some basketball injury or something.
Yeah, for real. Um, Now the cool thing is like these are very cohesive. These last few releases you've done, but I
Mhm.
haven't heard an EP from you since the amateurs one.
Uh-huh.
Will there be? Are you focused on making another project, like a full EP or album style project, or would you prefer to keep putting out singles?
I'm definitely in the camp that I love putting out singles because I mean, as someone who's not, you know, doesn't have a giant fan base, I'm not like every time I put out like a body of work, it's not gonna like there's gonna be a lot that falls through the cracks. So I think right now I'm just focused on singles. I mean, I'm dying to do remixes again, and yeah, it's kind of like I'm I feel like I'm just still discovering a lot about this sort of new direction that I'm going for. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like there's like I feel like I'm like slowly amassing my like room of instruments in that like some of them are in the computer, but like it's just like my go-tos for this style and my sort of go-to setup, and it's like changing all the time. But yeah, the the cool thing about that is sort of applying it to like a remix where I'm like, oh, let me try that with with another person's vocal and making more. Like I definitely like I'm dying to make some more club songs that are sort of in this vein, but maybe a little more like dance floor friendly edits and longer edits and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love the extended disco mix. That's one of my favorite
Hmm.
things. The 12-inch
Yeah,
disco.
totally.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but that's really cool hearing how you're like, yeah, you're kind of basically creating a palette with certain instruments and sounds. I really love that concept so much because it's one of the things that I always. Similarly, we were talking about The Weeknd, you know, it's and Mark Ronson actually, his work with Amy Winehouse, how he had the Dap Tone band come in and play all
Hmm.
the the music. It was like so cohesive, those records where you've kind of figured out this like palette or the setup, and that's how like records traditionally were made, right? You have like this bass, this guitar, this keyboard, and then you make a whole record with that set up at the studio, and you record it over and over a whole thing. um, but would you ever work with an artist and kind of like you're talking about doing remixes, but would you ever just work with one vocalist, or is there any desire to find a vocalist like that and complete a whole project like that?
Well, I mean, it's almost not far off with Dawn on this EP because she's on three of the four. I mean, kind of doing backups on a few of them, but like, yeah, it's like that sort of element of like, oh, let me just like. It's also sort of like time efficient to be
Yeah,
like, oh,
for
let's
sure.
like in like one shot. That's like coming up like recording and like having gone to recording school. It's like, okay, let's just do overdubs
Yeah.
and like, but yeah, like, I mean, I that's another sort of part that I'm sort of expanding to, where it's like I'm sort of producing for other people, and like whether or not it's like a whole record, maybe it's a song here and there, but um, trying to not trying to like force my sound onto anyone, but it's just sort of take my sort of instincts and put it onto somebody else's music, and yeah, like and mix it and that sort of thing. Like I love mixing. It's like that's sort of that it's just it's part like math nerd sort of like satisfies that craving, and like and then just sort of, I mean, try not to get too like technical, but yeah, I like that stuff for sure.
Yeah, no, it's the carving of it's like carving out the picture or the sculpture, right? It's like getting the bits out that you don't need. I love it. Yeah, that's cool. I don't know if I could ever. I don't ever think I'd ever be like a mix engineer though. That I feel like that's like too much pressure.
It is a lot of pressure because it's like it's really complicated because like I explained it to my dad the other day, and it was like he couldn't he was like, I mean, as someone who's like he plays like a few instruments, but I was like, yeah, like I take like 200 tracks or something, and I but it's got to come out two channels. Like everything's got to fit like into this like, I mean, not to like brag, but like mixing's pretty hard.
Yeah, no, it is.
Working with audio is hard. It's because it's like editing video is right in front of you. You can see everything, and I mean, editing video is hard too. But like,
Yes.
it's just like there's like ethereal things that happen with your ears. Your ears get tired. Like
Mm.
you're listening too loud, too quiet. Like so it's all it's very it's it's exhausting.
And emotional, not no less. It's
Yeah,
also very emotional.
yeah, because you've got to keep your keep the sort of directive in the emotion way, where it's like I'm not trying to like tear this song's like soul out. I need to
Yeah.
keep the soul of the song, but it's also like, yeah, but that snare is like a little bit like 2K, like, like just like little things where you just like you're just jumping back between your left and right brain. I mean, I think that's sort of the excitement of it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just like it's a lifelong thing where it's like
Oh
it's
yeah.
just it gets a little bit easier each time.
Isn't that the magic though? Like you never perfect music. You just
Uh,
it's a journey forever.
yeah, yeah,
I love that.
yeah, yeah. It's the yogis journey of like
Yeah,
of music and being okay with it not being finished and perfect.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you still get goosebumps from music?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like there's there's really like yeah, talking about like playing music for a crowd of people, playing your own record for a bunch of people and having it sort of a good reaction. It's pretty rad. That's undeniable.
Yeah. Um, we have a question that we ask every guest on the show, and it's always interesting. And it's very much in line with what we were just talking about. But you know, the question is, this show's about the power of music. But what does the power of music mean to you?
Yeah. I mean, it really makes an imprint on your life, like that. It's pretty hard to avoid. Like the music that you listen to at different ages just sticks with you, and you can always go back and be like, you listen to that song, and it reminds you of a different time, and you can like think of like visual images of like where you were maybe, or like a time period when you were listening to that song. So I don't know, like the such a weird sort of thing, music. It's like it's both like yeah, just very present, and then you can sort of I don't know, like that's why I sort of like listening to records over and over and over, and just like one record that I listen to like all the time is Arctic Monkeys, Tranquility Base and Casino. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, like it's the last record from a few years ago, and it's just like I just listen to it front to back. If I'm like we do like long drives to Calgary or something, I'll just like listen to it front to back, and or if I'm just like in a weird mood and I just need to like chill, I'll like put something like that on. So it's like I don't know. There's like little albums that are like almost little like soothers for your brain, which
Yeah.
is which is nice.
That's
Yeah,
cool that you revisit this album a lot. I haven't heard this album, and I really want to check it out. I actually posted in a Discord,
it's crazy.
"Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino" by Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah,
The artwork looks crazy.
it's so rad. It's such like if you listen to all the lyrics, it's so like I think going back to Dawn FM too. It's like I love when there's like I mean this one's even more than Dawn FM, like the sort of theme throughout and the lyrical content, and it's just so weird and trippy and futuristic, and but like so many, yeah, he's a genius for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really. I'm glad. Thank you for recommending that. Because yeah, music like that on a musical and lyrical level is quite hard, to come by. It's not super often. It's
Mm.
either kind of one's a little bit better than the other. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
maybe I'm making a generalization. Do you feel the same way? Like,
yeah. I mean, and frankly, like not, you know, I'm not the most lyrically inclined. Like I usually like leave that up to my collaborators in terms of like lyrical content, and then like melody. I can sort of sing melody. Not that I sing, but like I can sort of hum things, and yeah, it's just sort of the actual story, it's not something that I like am like very good at. I just probably need to spend more time doing it. But the when you hear like an entire record that's just like got a whole arc to it, it's like, fuck, I could never like imagine sort of like having that level of like vision for the context and yeah, when the music sort of suits it, it's so awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There's very few artists that do it so well, but when it comes all together, you're like, whoa, it's just timeless.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I really want to thank you for your time today, Sleepy Tom. It's been really great to chat to you about all these things.
Yeah, you too.
But is there anything that you wanted to talk or highlight in this chat while I have the opportunity to?
Well, if anyone listening wants to go and follow me around everywhere, I mean, that'd be cool. So it's always good to promote myself.
Metrics help.
You can probably, if you search Sleepytime, you'll be able to find me. Yeah, check out my new sort of songs. But yeah, nothing. I don't need to promo blast anything. I mean, my most recent song, I really like it. It's called This Thing Called Life, and the EP is called This Thing Called Life. But yeah, so go check that one out.
We've actually got a couple of the songs in the Unscripted playlist. If anyone's looking to listen to Sleepy Tom's music, you can actually get that in the Discord and here as well, which I highly recommend you doing. And I'm also a really big fan of this one specific song that you worked on with Grand Theft from back in the day called Hold On. And I know it's a bit of a departure from where you're at now, but this song is a banger. So if you don't mind, can we use this song as like can we step out to this song if for a moment?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna quickly play "Hold On" by Grand Theft and Sleepy Tom. This is a banger, man. What can I say? I love this song. And it was also used. I don't know. Did you know that it was used in a Serato performance video?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Okay, I don't know if it's still up, but let me see if I can. What was it? It was the Flip video. Serato Flip. We did this thing called Serato Flip performance video. Let me see if I can find it, because this is actually the first time I saw it. Was I heard the song by Nick McLaren, who works for Serato. He made a performance, and it was crazy. Yeah. Actually, I can't find it, so I'm just gonna play the song so we can listen to the song. But when I find the video, I'll send it to you, Sleepy Tom, so you can have it. But yeah, this is the tune. So stick around. We're gonna just run this song real quick, not for too long, because the old copyright police. Here we go. Hold On, Grand Theft and Sleepy Time. Hey, thanks so much, Sleepy Tom. That was a really fun time hanging out. And
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great chat.
hope to see you soon in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Well,
man.
I'll be around.
All right, dude. Well, have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
All right, peace.